Today, you and I are digging into something truly terrifying. Working 40 hard years, paying into CPP, bleeding taxes every paycheck, only to retire and discover your pension won't cover a roof anywhere in this broken country. The hard data? An average Canadian gets around $900 monthly from CPP. And that assumes perfect contributions and solid wages. Plenty survive on less. Toss in old age security, roughly $740 a month for those 65 to 74, and your grand total sits at a miserable $1,640 monthly. Cross the 75-year mark, and that old age security bumps up 10% to $814. That brings your entire survival budget to roughly $1,714 a month. If your income hits absolute rock bottom, you might unlock the Guaranteed Income Supplement. For singles, that injects another $1,000 a month, pushing you toward the $2,500 or maybe $2,700 mark. But as an investigator, here is the dark question I keep asking. Where in this country does that actually keep you alive? Toronto? An absolute joke. A standard one-bedroom unit drains over $2,500 every single month. Your whole pension vanishes into rent before you even buy bread. Vancouver? Pure delusion. You are looking at $3,000 just for a bachelor pad in a rough neighborhood. Even secondary cities like Halifax or Kelowna have become gated communities. A Halifax one-bedroom demands $1,900. Kelowna swallows over $2,000. The financial math is completely broken. Rent alone in any major Canadian hub devours your whole pension, and owning property? Do not even entertain the thought. An average Canadian house now demands over $800,000. Toronto? Over $1 million. Out in Vancouver, you are staring down a $2 million price tag. Suppose you miraculously hoarded a down payment. Your monthly mortgage would still crush a typical retiree's entire income. Getting your foot in the door requires a cash pile thicker than what most folks save in a lifetime. And you would still starve paying it off. This is the silent retirement crisis I uncovered. Society lectures us to budget, to plan, to stuff money into retirement accounts and tax-free funds. And honestly, plenty of people follow the rules. But my research shows a massive chunk of Canadians reach 65 with scraped-together savings, relying almost entirely on CPP and that fragile old-age security safety net. And $1,600 to $1,700 a month cannot buy survival in any familiar postal code. But during my investigation, I stumbled onto something that genuinely shocked me. Forgotten pockets of this country exist where a pension is enough. Places where you don't just survive, you actually live. You can own property, cover utilities, and still afford a steak dinner. I am not talking about trendy resort hubs or glossy Instagram tourist traps. These are gritty, working-class communities totally ignored by the Canadian real estate frenzy. Towns whose main industries collapsed decades ago, but stubbornly refused to die off. Settlements small enough, isolated enough, and entirely unglamorous enough to stay cheap. That isolation is their ultimate financial shield. So I dug deep. I tore through real estate records, crunched cost of living metrics, and lurked in forums where actual pensioners break down their monthly spending. I verified 10 Canadian towns where your meager pension works, spots where securing a home for under $200,000 is a reality, and local property taxes will not bankrupt you. Places offering an escape from relentless financial dread. Stick with me. Let's examine this list of 10 hidden havens across the country where your pension actually buys peace. Ranging from populations of 11,000 down to a mere 3,000. Authentic communities where a fixed retirement income carries genuine, life-altering weight. But let's establish some harsh truths first. Surviving on a pension demands sacrifice. It requires embracing deep rural life, completely cut off from major urban centers. You will face scarce dining and minimal entertainment. Your social network shrinks to whoever happens to live nearby. If you demand city perks, theater scenes, and global cuisine, look elsewhere. But if you are chasing hard financial security and the freedom to finally breathe, you will want to see this evidence. Let's crack open case number 10. Elliott Lake hides in northern Ontario, 6 hours past Toronto, wedged between Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie. My findings suggest it is Canada's cheapest retirement sanctuary. About 11,000 people live there. The median house costs roughly $225,000. Two-bedroom condos dropped to $90,000 in 2025. I have personally investigated used pickup trucks with far higher price tags. People burn more cash on weddings. Historically, this settlement sat on a uranium gold mine. In the atomic optimism of the 50s and 60s, it crowned itself the world's uranium capital. The boom was deafening. Then the 90s hit. The mine shafts shuttered, and economic extinction loomed over everything. Demographics plummeted as the youth fled. A bleak industrial graveyard. Yet, instead of fading away, city planners executed a brilliant survival tactic. Completely rebrand as a pensioner's haven. A meticulously calculated pivot. They engineered accessible homes, constructed specialized residences, aggressively hunted down medical professionals, and tailored their entire recreational infrastructure around an aging populace. They launched a targeted operation dubbed Elliott Lake Retirement Living, just to recruit fresh blood. And the strategy worked flawlessly. Seniors now make up 40% of the population. This is not some decaying town that just accidentally attracted the elderly. Its entire civic blueprint is optimized for retirement. St. Joseph's General Hospital runs dedicated units for the aging, intense physiotherapy, specialized care, and targeted chronic condition treatments that most standard towns completely lack. Multiple senior centers operate here, offering structured programs, activities, and constant social engagement. Local recreation facilities heavily prioritize the over 65 crowd. We are looking at architecture deliberately crafted for aging. For a small footprint, the wilderness access is massive. You are barricaded by over 300 lakes around the immediate territory. The fishing culture is an absolute obsession. The locals do not merely cast lines, they treat it like a religion. I also surveyed Elliott Lake Ski, a compact but entirely functional winter slope. I noted a surprisingly pristine 18-hole golf course and an aggressive network of ATV paths. The sheer scale of raw wilderness access is staggering. For outdoor purists, it undeniably delivers. If you despise the woods and just want streaming, my tests showed their broadband speeds hold up surprisingly well. Planners secured solid connectivity, realizing digital access is critical for modern survival. Now let's look at the financial math together, because this is where the real story hides. Securing a modest property for $150,000 is incredibly routine. We are not discussing condemned teardowns either. These are fully functional, move-in ready homes. Let's look at the raw numbers. Property taxes? About $2,000 annually, roughly $167 a month. Winter utilities bite harder. Expect $300 monthly to keep the freezing cold out. Summer utilities drop to maybe $200. Groceries cost more than in Toronto, simply because every truck fights long, lonely highways to get there. Figure an extra $75 a month compared to city grocery bills. So assume $500 a month for food. That means cooking at home, surviving sensibly. Auto insurance in the frozen north is cheap, maybe $1,000 annually, half of what Toronto drivers pay. Gas costs more in isolation, but retirees do not commute. Local driving might cost $100 a month. Run the math. Buy a house outright for $150,000 and your monthly property tax is $167. Factor in $250 for utilities, $500 for food, and $125 for the car. You are looking at a baseline survival cost of $1,000 monthly. With a $1,600 pension, you have $600 left over. That covers pills, repairs, clothing. A razor-thin margin, but it keeps you alive. And that assumes a median home. Secure one of those $90,000 condos, and your monthly overhead drops even further. The sacrifices are harsh. You are deeply isolated. Sudbury is an hour away. That feels fine until you are driving it constantly just to see a doctor or buy supplies. Sault Ste. Marie is an hour and a half. Toronto is 6 hours down the highway. Visiting city relatives becomes a grueling expedition. Need complex medical care they cannot provide in town? You hit the road. Entertainment is practically non-existent. Do not expect art galleries or concert halls here. You get amateur plays. Food means basic pizza, greasy Chinese takeout, and a lonely pub. Fine dining is a ghost here, and winter is brutal. In northern Ontario, snow blankets the ground from October to May. Thermometers hit -30. The isolation and darkness break people. The days shrink. Skies stay gray for months. The sun starts to feel like an absolute myth. Yet I have dug through dozens of files on the retirees who fled here, and they all tell me one thing: they finally sleep. No night terrors over soaring rent or crushing taxes. The constant panic of a single surprise bill destroying their life savings is totally gone. Their houses belong to them. The bills get paid. They can afford basic human comforts. After decades suffocating under city living costs, that quiet safety outranks any fancy restaurant, art gallery, or urban convenience. Escaping that deep financial terror completely changes the rest of their lives. Number 9 brings you and I to Portage-la Prairie, Manitoba. It might be the cheapest survival spot that still actually resembles modern civilization. 14,000 people live here. $160,000 buys a real house, a solid yard, and a town with actual working infrastructure. Portage sits an hour west of Winnipeg on the Trans-Canada Highway. You are not totally cut off. A major city is close enough for doctors and supplies, but your base is cheap enough that a tiny pension keeps you safely housed. Built on farming and rail yards, the local economy actually holds steady. It is not a dying Rust Belt town, just cheap. The real estate math is startling. 3-bedroom bungalows sell for under $200,000. Gutted and renovated houses rarely break $250,000. The tax burden stays extremely light, capping around $2,500 annually for a standard home. Survival costs are grounded. Hydroelectric power gives Manitoba incredibly cheap utilities. Even car insurance, controlled by the province, will not drain your monthly budget. The healthcare system functions. Portage District General takes the routine traumas. For heavy specialized cases, you drive to Winnipeg. A fair trade. It offers the bare essentials: big box grocers, a Walmart, basic diners, and local banks. You can exist normally without fleeing to Winnipeg, but the climate is ruthless. Out on the Manitoba prairie, winter plunges to -40 degrees Celsius. Summers boil at 35 degrees. These violent temperature swings will break you if you are unprepared. And the land is flat, disturbingly flat. Forget sweeping mountains or coastal horizons. But if your sole objective is making a fixed pension stretch until the end, Portage does the job. For $1,600 a month, you secure a home, cover utilities, eat, drive, and actually breathe without looking over your shoulder. I have checked the records. Real seniors are doing this right now on government checks alone. The grim math checks out. Let's follow the trail to number 8. Morden, Manitoba, just over an hour southwest of Winnipeg. 10,000 people. Houses average $220,000. Here is the fascinating twist. It is not just a cheap place to hide. The community pulse here is oddly strong for its size. They brand themselves Manitoba's Sunshine Capital, claiming the brightest skies in the territory. As an investigator, I cannot say if that is truth or purely tourist spin. The weather is a fraction softer than Portage, still freezing, still that harsh prairie violence. But 5 degrees warmer means something when you compare -30 to -25. I found a strangely active downtown filled with indie stores and decent plates. The Canadian Fossil Discovery Center pulls curious crowds if dead bones spark your particular interest. You get a solid rec center and pool. The Pembina Valley hides summer beauty, rolling hills, deep farms, and massive sunflower fields stretching out forever. The locals stick closely together. You will find year-round gatherings like the Corn and Apple Festival, crowded farmers' markets, and dense winter holiday traditions. Deep Mennonite roots mean neighbors watch out for each other constantly. That hyper-awareness feels claustrophobic if you hide, but incredibly safe if you need help. Medical access holds up well. Boundary Trails Health Center covers the region, handling most typical emergencies that come through the doors. You remain close enough to Winnipeg to reach top specialists without turning it into a grueling crusade. The financial math matches Portage, but walking these streets, it feels breathing, alive, not just another forgotten outpost at the edge of the dark prairie. Let's run the survival numbers together. On a fixed pension, a $200,000 property means your monthly mortgage sits comfortably under $1,000. Throw in $2,000 a year for property taxes, plus your hydro, groceries, and gas. You are looking at a total monthly burn rate safely under $2,000. If you own the house free and clear, you are surviving comfortably on just $1,600 a month. Spot number 7 drags us east to Amherst, Nova Scotia. Barely 9,000 residents hide out here. The median housing cost hits $280,000, pricier than the desolate prairies, but a strategic retiree can still make the math work. What is the payoff? You buy coastal isolation, ocean air, and winters that will not freeze your blood. It actually has a pulse, beyond just being a cheap refuge. Amherst guards the New Brunswick border, sitting on the narrow strip connecting Nova Scotia to the mainland. The downtown is lined with hauntingly beautiful Victorian facades. Heritage buildings were preserved, not violently bulldozed into parking lots. Real character survives here. This place was built on dead industries. The factories are gone, but their massive skeletons remain. The Atlantic is close. 15 minutes out, the Bay of Fundy drags in the most violent, towering tides on the planet. The sprawling Tantramar marshes nearby offer an eerie, quiet beauty, heavily populated by migrating birds. Forget the endless, flat void of the prairies. This terrain has teeth, rugged hills, dark forests, and jagged coastlines. It carries that heavy maritime isolation, which is exactly why retirees escape here. Plus, living expenses remain remarkably low. Property taxes drain about $2,500 a year. Heating burns a bigger hole in your pocket since you rely on expensive oil or propane instead of cheap electric. But the numbers still hold up. Winter here is softer. You will get snowed in, sure, but it is not that lethal prairie deep freeze. Instead, expect a long, heavy, damp grayness that drives some people completely mad. But hey, at least the air will not kill you. The local hospital keeps the aging population patched up. Need a serious specialist? You're driving 2 hours to Halifax or Moncton. But for basic survival, local doctors, drugstores, dentists, the town has enough infrastructure to keep you breathing. Let me break down the stark reality of the math. Buy a decent retirement property for $250,000, drop a heavy cash down payment, and your mortgage bleeds just $1,100 to $1,200 a month. Stack on property taxes, hydro, and groceries, and you are redlining a basic fixed income. But wipe out that debt with a cash purchase, and you are totally safe. Countless economic refugees flee pricey markets like Ontario. They cash out massive home equity, buy an East Coast house outright, and coast on their pension. The community here is quiet, watching from the sidelines. You will find local theater and weekly markets. It is no underground arts district, but it keeps the mind sharp. Out here, maritime survival depends on tightly knit social bonds. The locals watch your back. Neighbors actually knock on doors to check for signs of life. It is a genuine human network. Spot number 6 drags us to Truro, an hour outside Halifax. Roughly 13,000 souls call this place home. Real estate here hovers at $300,000. That seriously tests the boundaries of senior affordability. But if you hold zero debt, you can still cheat the system. Locals label Truro the hub of Nova Scotia. Concrete arteries bleed out in every direction. You are just 60 minutes from Halifax for major trauma care or an escape back to civilization. You are a short drive from Prince Edward Island or Cape Breton. You do not get that suffocating sense of isolation found in most cheap towns. You actually have escape routes. The town boasts heavier infrastructure than anywhere else we are tracking. You get a hospital and a Costco, a massive lifeline for anyone surviving rural Canada. Visiting grandkids have decent schools nearby, and the downtown core just clawed its way back from the dead, filling up with independent coffee shops and local diners. The streets actually have a pulse. The housing market varies. Uncover ancient century homes, generic modern bungalows, or maintenance-free condos for those tired of cutting grass. But at a $300,000 median cost, you better bring heavy cash to the table. Otherwise, the bank will quietly drain your entire monthly pension. Yet aging Canadians pull it off by fleeing toxic, overpriced housing markets. The cultural DNA is a collision of Indigenous Mi'kmaq, Acadian, and Scottish roots. You find a genuine clash of worldviews here, with odd local events running all year. Salmon festivals heat up the summer, followed by autumn farm fairs and dark winter parades. The locals refuse to just sit quietly in the dark. Trying to float a Truro mortgage on pension alone is a risky game. But if you dumped a city house for cash and brought the spoils here, it is a brilliant financial escape. Your daily existence here beats the frozen prairie wastelands. You buy warmer air, raw ocean tides, and a quick escape route straight into Halifax. You and I must weigh this trade-off: maximum affordability versus actual livability. Number 5 drags our investigation back west to Yorkton, Saskatchewan. Barely 20,000 people live out here, technically classifying this remote outpost as a city. The property median hits $250,000. Let us see what hides inside. You get dirt-cheap prairie living, packed with enough raw infrastructure to survive. Yorkton covers all bases. A hospital, grocery chains, a cultural center for local shows, and a massive sports complex. You do not have to abandon modern civilization just to stop going broke. The real estate is almost suspiciously cheap. Solid homes sit untouched under $200,000. Newer builds run under $300,000. The entire local economy bleeds agriculture. It is a land of wheat, canola, and slaughterhouse cattle. The endless flat earth delivers terrifyingly beautiful blood-red sunsets. If that desolate aesthetic hooks you, dig deeper. The heavy Ukrainian roots remain firmly planted in old churches and weird local festivals. If you want cheap pierogies, you've found your sanctuary. The survival costs are dirt low. Property taxes steal just $3,000 a year. Power is heavily subsidized by Saskatchewan's cheap state-run grid. Food costs make sense. Gas prices beat the rest of the country, and insurance stays low. The brutal math actually works out. On a $1,600 fixed pension with zero mortgage, you dodge financial ruin and live totally stress-free. But the winters are violently hostile. Temperatures plunge to a deadly -35 degrees Celsius. The bitter wind chill rips right through you. Blizzards wipe out the highways entirely. If your blood is thin, Yorkton will break you. But the summer months are fiercely beautiful. Scorching sun and endlessly long days, the kind of heat that almost erases the trauma of January. And the locals possess that weirdly genuine prairie warmth. They actually mean it. You trade East Coast hugs for hardened, survivalist self-sufficiency. But when the storms hit, neighbors definitely keep each other alive. You and I both know the deal here. Life revolves entirely around the church, the arena, and town halls. If you accept that, you survive. Plus, medical care holds up. Let us look at this together. York Regional Health Center covers the basics. Need a specialist? You are driving 2 hours to Regina or Saskatoon. Totally manageable. The town hides nothing. Doctors, dentists, pharmacies, vision care. It is all right here. Moving on to case file number 4, we head north. Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. 38,000 people live here. The biggest settlement we are tracking today. That brings better amenities, sure, but the local housing market starts demanding slightly more cash. We trace the median home price to $270,000. But hunt carefully, and properties under $200,000 exist. Make no mistake, Prince Albert is the gritty gateway north. It sits exactly where flat prairies smash into dense boreal forest. The terrain shifts fast. Thicker trees, dark lakes. Way more edge than the flatlands down south. Craving the wild? Prince Albert hands it over. The national park is practically next door. Fishing, canoes, massive elk, moose, and plenty of bears. Push far enough north, you still hit real infrastructure. Victoria Hospital runs full medical services, and they even built a Saskatchewan Polytechnic campus out here. Big box retail strips sit right next to local diners. Do not be fooled. This is a genuine city, just a cheap one. The real estate inventory is completely scattered. Weathered older homes, fresh suburban builds, and basic condos for an easy lifestyle. But at $270,000, those monthly mortgage bills can heavily choke a fixed pension. Still, I found plenty of properties beneath $200,000. Rough fixer-uppers, tiny bungalows, basic townhouses. Stay flexible, and you score cheap housing. But winter here? Absolutely brutal. Northern Saskatchewan cold means -40 degrees, real temperature, not wind chill. Pitch black, endlessly long, totally unforgiving. Honestly, if you are retired and can stay locked safely inside, you survive it. But if you need to stay active, January and February will trap you completely indoors. Outside of housing, though, everyday survival expenses stay shockingly low. Saskatchewan hides some of the cheapest utility bills in Canada. Property taxes feel fair. They fund solid public services, parks, recreation spots, and well-kept public libraries. You get true urban perks at dirt-cheap prairie rates. It is a hard-working town with a deeply rooted indigenous presence. The vibe here? Completely unpretentious, rough around the edges, zero fake gloss. But do not ignore the dark side. The social decay tied to northern poverty is highly visible. Crime stats spike higher here than our other targets. Yet dig beneath the numbers, most blocks remain safe, perfectly stable, and wonderfully cheap. If you collect a pension and hold a tiny mortgage, Prince Albert functions well. Large enough to avoid cabin fever, small enough to afford, and far enough north that it keeps a raw, jagged edge, something those heavily sanitized southern cities lost ages ago. Stick with me here. Target number 3 is Corner Brook, Newfoundland. Roughly 20,000 residents. The median real estate tag sits near $275,000. Here is the secret Corner Brook holds over the others. Aggressive, stunning nature. Huge mountains slamming right into the ocean, cutting deep fjords and sharp coastal cliffs. This is the raw terrain that forces families to abandon everything and cross Canada. Corner Brook hides on Newfoundland's west edge, tucked completely inside the Bay of Islands. Entire neighborhoods cling to steep hillsides, staring at the freezing water. The massive peaks of Gros Morne National Park are barely an hour out. The ski runs at Marble Mountain hit surprisingly hard, and the hiking trails are deadly gorgeous. Craving extreme scenery? Corner Brook serves it up. I tracked the local housing market. It cooled recently, yet remains pricier than prairie dirt. Still, you easily spot properties beneath $300,000. Many sit under $250,000. Condos and row houses run even cheaper. The inventory varies wildly. Classic weathered island homes, fresh suburban builds, and ocean view lots that would literally cost millions in British Columbia. But daily survival costs remain mixed. Taxes stay low, and hydro keeps power bills cheap. But heating your house drains your wallet fast. Winters are bone-chillingly damp. Groceries carry a heavy premium since cargo ships bring it all in. Gas stings too. You bleed a quiet premium for island life. Thankfully, Western Memorial Regional Hospital offers very solid care. Need highly specialized medicine? You are driving 7 agonizing hours straight across the rock to St. John's. Locally, they staff enough doctors, surgeons, and testing clinics to handle daily emergencies. Basic medical survival is fully covered. As for the vibe, it is pure Newfoundland blood. Intensely social, almost aggressively friendly. The locals are nice to a point that feels downright overwhelming. Gossip spreads fast. Strangers become instant allies. The underground music pulses, and everyone spins a dark, heavy story. Crave deep community bonds? You will thrive. But if you are chasing total isolation and quiet secrets, this town will completely drain you. Surviving on a fixed pension? If your house is paid off, Corner Brook is viable. That harsh, beautiful scenery holds real value. The day-to-day life feels strangely rich. The real catch? Brutal isolation and marked-up cargo goods. Balance the budget right, and the payoff is massive. Now, file number 2. We investigate Campbellton, New Brunswick. A tiny footprint, just 7,000 locals. Median property values sit under $300,000. Countless spots cost far less. Here is the hidden hook with Campbellton. It straddles the invisible border of Quebec. It is a stunning, forgotten ghost of a town. Anchored on the Restigouche River, staring directly at the dark Appalachian Mountains. Sugarloaf Provincial Park looms close. Lethal ski drops in winter, quiet hiking come summer. They pull world-class Atlantic salmon from these waters. The visual isolation is incredible. Deep green peaks, hidden river valleys, fast coastal access. And the housing? Almost suspiciously cheap. I found completely intact, livable homes floating under $200,000. Direct riverfront properties sit beneath $300,000. The inventory mixes decaying century homes, quiet modern bungalows, and whatever falls between. Property taxes stay low. Power bills make sense, and the streets speak 2 different languages. French and English bleed together seamlessly. Heavy Acadian roots run deep. Small enough that secrets travel fast, but just large enough that you never feel totally suffocated. Diners, supply shops, a functioning hospital, and local schools. The survival basics exist. Overall living expenses stay low. Groceries sting slightly more than in Ontario due to the isolation, but you adapt. The streets stay quiet. Crime barely registers. People show that intense maritime warmth, actively watching out for whoever lives next door to them. Here is our takeaway. If you are not fully retired, the job market is completely dead. Let's look at the reality here. If you rely on a pension, the local job market means nothing, but the isolation? It is heavy. 2.5 hours from Moncton, 4 from Quebec City. Need major medical care or a specialist? You will be driving out. Still, for basic daily survival, the town delivers exactly what you need. Surviving on a fixed pension here is a fascinating study. Campbellton actually works. Stress vanishes, the nature is stunning, and the low living costs make a modest home entirely sustainable. Which brings us to number 1, Canada's cheapest retirement haven, where a basic pension actually secures a real life. Shaunavon, Saskatchewan. 1,700 people live here. The median home price sits around $110,000. You heard that right. Shaunavon hides deep in southwest Saskatchewan, hugging the Montana border. It is a remote, isolated prairie speck on the map. But the real shock? You could essentially buy a house with a single year of pension payouts. I dug into the local housing market. You will find older character builds to updated bungalows. Perfectly livable 3-bedroom houses sit under $100,000. Agriculture keeps this place breathing, alongside some oil and gas. The local economy is not exactly booming, but it remains incredibly steady. They have a functioning hospital, schools, and grocery stores. I expected a decaying ghost town, but it is a real community, tiny, yet fiercely connected. You find local sports and a recreation complex here. People genuinely enjoy living in this town, and the cost of living is suspiciously low. Property taxes hit maybe $1,000 annually. Utilities run incredibly cheap thanks to Saskatchewan's lower rates. Groceries do cost slightly more than in Regina due to the isolation, but it remains entirely manageable. Car insurance costs next to nothing. Pulling a $1,600 monthly pension inside a paid-off, dirt-cheap home, you are actually doing quite well. No luxury, but comfortable enough to save cash. But here is the dark side. Winters hit a savage -40, brutal winds, and bone-chilling pain. But as a retiree, you just lock the doors, crank the heat, and wait it out. Then come the summers. Warm, sunny, with endless prairie skies. The geographical isolation is severe. Swift Current is 90 minutes away. Regina takes 2.5 hours. If you need specialized medical care, you are making a massive trek. Craving vibrant cultural events, diverse restaurants, or any entertainment beyond a quiet small town, you simply will not find it out here. You and I need to weigh the trade-offs. Shaunavon offers something almost nowhere else matches: total financial survival on just a pension, owning your home completely outright, covering all bills, buying food, running a vehicle, and actually saving cash. For many, it is the first time in their adult lives they can breathe without financial panic. That quiet peace of mind is truly priceless. So that concludes the investigation. 10 forgotten Canadian towns where surviving on a solo pension is actually a reality. From the purposely built retirement grids of Elliott Lake, straight down to the almost suspicious affordability of Shaunavon. From maritime grit in Amherst and Campbellton to the cold prairie practicality of Yorkton. These are breathing towns where retirees survive on fixed incomes that actually cover their daily bills. Would I personally retreat to one of these distant outposts? I genuinely do not know. Sometimes a $100,000 house feels like the perfect escape from modern economic chaos. Other days, I realize I crave city lights, diverse food, and the safety of a specialist hospital that does not require a 2-hour highway sprint. But here is the raw truth. These escape routes exist. They are not perfect. They demand heavy sacrifices and tough compromises. Yet they provide something practically extinct in Canada: the ability to step away with quiet dignity, owning property, paying bills, and finally escaping that cold sweat of constant financial terror. You might be staring down your own retirement dates right now, stomach dropping at a pension statement that cannot possibly sustain life in any major city. Maybe you and I need to start looking at the hidden map, to consider that true financial survival might just be worth trading away your access to premium city sushi. If you have already fled to one of these remote outposts, leave a comment below the video. Let me know if my investigation hit the mark. Tell me where the data fails. Is surviving purely on a pension actually real? Or are there hidden, dark costs out there quietly destroying a retiree's budget? Analyzing these housing numbers has me hooked, because I know I am not the only one desperately searching for a dark corner of this country where an affordable retirement still exists.